Stupid drivers, bad predictions, and viewer mail. Let's talk about it. Welcome everyone. Mark here from Uber Hints. We've got a lot to get through today. This first story comes to us from North Huntington, Pennsylvania, and it's a doozy. Now, I took this from several different sources. The funny thing about these news stories, and I've said this time and again, where do people learn how to write news these days? Reporters are so ill-equipped to do their job. I think in this one story, it said something to the effect of, police said, according to police, according to the complaint. It must have said that 7 times. We get it. You're trying to cover your butt. Say it once. You know, this material comes from a police report. Everyone is so afraid these days that they just pussyfoot around. Okay, enough editorializing about the sorry state of our news reporting in today's society. Right now we're going to look at this great story, talk about stupidity. 2 pounds of marijuana were left behind in an Uber in Pennsylvania. And when the rider tried to meet up with the driver to retrieve it, he actually met up with state troopers instead. What a genius. According to the criminal complaint, on January 2nd, police were dispatched after the Uber driver called 911 after discovering the marijuana inside his vehicle. I don't know if I would have called the police on that one. The driver told police he was working as an Uber driver on December 29th, 2018. I have to imagine that this rider was getting ready for a whoop-de-doo New Year's Eve. What do you think? And received an email from the Uber letting him know that the previous rider had left a package in his vehicle. The email contained a phone number at which he could reach the rider. On January 9th, a state trooper posed as the Uber driver called the 21-year-old rider named Malik Mallet. Malik Mallet, how's that for a moniker? Now I'm thinking to myself, it was left there on December 29th. Now we're January 9th. If I left 2 pounds of pot in someone's car and this had gone on for almost 2 weeks, I'm ready to write that sucker off and just chalk it up to a bad mistake. Don't you realize over a 2-week period, something's probably going down? But let's go on. Mallet answered the phone and said he had left the package in the car and would meet up with the trooper to get it back. I'm assuming at this point he doesn't know it's a state trooper. I'm almost 100% sure he doesn't know it's a state trooper, but this poorly written article doesn't say so, it doesn't state it that way. He confirmed his name and told the trooper that the bag he had left in the Uber was black. The trooper then texted him a picture of the bag and Mallet confirmed it was his. The trooper then made arrangements with Mallet to meet at a McDonald's in Irwin. When Mallet arrived at the McDonald's, a trooper went inside and gave the bag to Mallet. Another trooper entered the McDonald's and took Mallet into custody. How's that for a happy meal? I'll tell you, dumb riders. Let's go on to page 2. All right, this one comes to us from a website that I don't think that I have ever taken a story from before. It is TNW is the name of the website, and this has to do with the future of Uber. And boy, do I have a lot to say on this. I have really pared down their online story. If you want to go look at it yourself, again, the source is TNW, but I think you're going to get the gist of it from what we talk about here. Uber has plans to eliminate car ownership. Well, we've heard that before. Take over public transportation. I've talked to you about that before. And even fly you across cities. So what is the news story here? Let's go on. Say bye to being stuck in traffic. Uber says this is a dream and that can become a reality in just a few years' time as it rolls out plans to become the Amazon of transportation. Now, it lists 3 what it refers to as grand ambitions. Grand ambition number 1, put an end to private car ownership. Uber's latest service, Ride Pass, is offering customers a subscription plan of $14.99 per month or $24.99 in Los Angeles to avoid surge pricing. So what they're saying is, we're going to raise the price, but you can pay us money to make us not raise the price. What a bunch of pirates. I mean, is that like the most unethical thing you've ever heard of? The service is rolled out following Lyft's announcement of a $299 all-access plan subscription. If you remember, that was the one that you could get 30 rides for $299. The new subscription plan is meant to entice us to leave cars at home and opt for more convenient ride-hailing options. What a weird way of saying that. What it's going to entice us to do is still use an Uber during surges. Eventually, these companies hope to reduce our car ownership to a bare minimum. The author of The Membership of Economy, Robbie Baxter, here's a guy that's trying to jump on a bandwagon just to line his own pockets, predicts that we'll own cars the way we own horses. It's a folly. It's a fun thing, but it's not the way we get around. Robbie Baxter, you are an idiot. You are a complete moron. You're one of these people that writes a book because you see an opportunity. What a stupid thing. I don't even have to read your book to realize that you are an imbecile. But for Uber to turn cars into horses, it will need to provide some real value to its customers. The new subscription option sounds appealing at first, as riders can evade dynamically adjusted prices in times of high demand, but Uber created this price inconvenience in the first place. That was my whole point. You know, you create a price that goes up and you charge people to not pay it. So you're getting them coming and going. Is that the epitome of corruption? It's almost like saying, you know, we're going to create a computer virus and then we're going to create a program to combat that virus. You're talking about almost the same ethical and moral approach. We're going to raise prices and we're going to charge you to avoid the raised prices. You know, doesn't the mob do that? They come in, they charge you for protection, and if you don't pay for protection, they're the ones that destroy your store and rob you. Last year, when New York City was caught, that's what it says, when the New York City, these writers, when the New York City was caught in a heavy snowstorm, Uber's algorithm increased prices to over 4 times the regular price. New Yorkers were outraged. You remember that. That's when the whole delete Uber kicked in. Thus, for us, as users, the deal is just not sweet enough. We're asked to pay for the inconvenience that we did not want in the first place. Drivers are in no better situation either when it comes to surge pricing, and they're talking now, they go on to talk about that class action lawsuit, yada, yada, yada. I don't think it fits into the points I'm trying to make in this video. Now, what do I say to that? You are not going to stop private car ownership. I'm willing to bet if we went back to the 1930s, they'd say, hey, we're putting up trolleys and cable cars, and you don't have to own a Model T any longer. We have buses now. You don't have to own a private car. Oh, we have trains that can go from coast to coast, and you don't need... Baloney. You know, what about rural areas that don't get all these services? What about off-peak times? Yeah, there are so many variables here. They're not going to put an end to private car ownership, let alone the fact that America, and I'm just speaking for my country, is in love with cars. You know, I have cars sitting in my driveway, or vehicles sitting in my driveway that I don't need, but I have them. Right? I've got a vintage Corvette in there that I take out because I enjoy it. Now you're going to say, well, that's what he means by the horse. I don't care what he means. We're going to be out on the public roads with those vehicles. Grand ambition number 2, take over public transportation. Uber has so far seized only 1% of the transportation system around the world, but it's now ready to take a bigger chunk of the pie, cities' entire population transportation systems. We've heard that said already as well. I want to run, now this is Dastardly Dar, Uber's CEO, being quoted here. I want to run the bus systems for a city. I want you to be able to take an Uber and get into the subway. Get out and have Uber waiting for you. Of course, that's what we all want. Pay us some money and you can have your goal, Dara. Dara really has quite a superiority complex, doesn't he? Grand ambition number 3, launch Uber Air. Now, is it Uber Air or Uber Elevate? We go back and forth with that. They can't even think of a name, and you think they're going to make it work? Uber is on to an even more ambitious challenge, the launch of Uber Air, a flying taxi. Eventually, these aircrafts will be pilotless. Uber is consistent with this on the ground as well as in the air. They're going for full automation. This means Uber chauffeurs and pilots will be out of a job in just a few years time. You know, when we did our podcast this week, and Dustin and I went back and forth a little bit. He said, yeah, we're eventually going to get there to driverless cars. I said, it ain't going to happen. And then he hedged his bet and said something like, well, in 40 years' time. I still don't think it's going to happen. I'm old enough to remember 40 years ago. You know how different driving was? Hardly any different at all. You know, Uber, all they are taxis. It's no different. It's a different name. So you hail your taxi with a phone instead of calling up, you know, on a landline. Big deal. It's not going to change. Good Lord, you guys have sucker tattooed on your forehead. They're not going to have driverless cars as the norm. And it's not because it can't happen. We have the technology. We've been flying for 115 years. 115 years. Suddenly, we're supposed to think that we're going to take to the air. What's changed? We've had helicopters since the 40s, 70 some years now. What changed? Nothing's changed. Oh, well, Mark, now they're electric. Now they make a little less noise. Big deal. You still have to, they're expensive. You think they're going to let aircraft fly without pilots? Oh my goodness, it's not going to happen. Well, I don't know, it makes good press. And it's wonderful to talk to you in these videos. If you disagree with me, I love to hear it. But I can tell you with assurance, it's not going to happen. Come back and watch this video in 2059 and say, wow, that guy was pretty darn smart. Because you'll still be getting in your car and driving around. Now, I don't know what will be powering your car then. I don't know if it'll be electric or it'll be hydrogen. I hope in 2059, I hope that we are still not using the internal combustion engine. But it wouldn't surprise me because change is slow. So let's look at viewer mail. We got some good ones here today. So in some general viewer mail here, the first one came from someone who was very bitter that I did not respond personally to a message she left. I don't know if it was left in the comments section or if it was sent to my Gmail address, uberhints@gmail.com, but here's what she had to say. And I'm going to try to read this in a calm tone, but I'm envisioning anger here. I'm convinced you do not reply to all you receive, Mark. Too bad. I was only trying to help with a comment I heard you made. My response, that you can look it up if you want. Of course, I can't reply to every comment. Who has that much time in their day? But I read them all. I respond to a lot of my comments. I simply can't, you know, usually if the comments come the day that it's released, I get in and respond to it. Comments that come 2 or 3 days, I'm on to new videos already. So yeah, I can't respond to everybody. I've got almost 6,000 subscribers. It's, you know, unless you have a secretary or something to wade through all this stuff and sort out the new comments from the older comments, it's really hard. So I'm sorry. This is one of those things. This is not my full-time job. I can't comment to every single comment that's made. I can't reply to all of them. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that it's unrealistic. It's almost humanly impossible to catch up. I'm getting comments from videos I made a year ago. So I'm sorry that you're angry, and I'm sorry you're upset by this and you think less of me, but I suspect things aren't going to change. The good news is I responded to that one. The next viewer mail says, Mark, I wonder why you have much less subscribers than many blatant YouTubers out there. You always talk with the truth in your hands, with no speculation or hurting other YouTubers. Keep it up. Well, I do speculate on things like I did in this video. But no, I don't see any reason to go after other YouTubers unless it's good nature. I just give little jabs. You know, I do that with Chicago a lot. You know, I have a little fun with it. But the reason I suspect I don't have more viewers is just that. There is no drama on this channel, and people like drama. So my channel's been growing slow and steady. But, you know, there are some YouTubers out there, a real popular one who I won't name, but I mean, when you go out there and you put everything out there and, you know, your dysfunctional family and you're telling about all the stupid things you've done, people are going to buy into that and they are going to log in and subscribe to that channel by the scores. When I come in here and just have conversations, you know, what Jimmy Carter used to call our fireside chats, yeah, you know, that in many ways is not the way today's society works. Is hit and run, insults, you know, everything. When you think about the TV shows that are so popular, you know, Cutthroat Kitchen and Vote 'em Off the Island, and everything is really designed to create tension and create drama and be stressful and be hurtful. And I don't know, that's not me. So that's my take on it. If you ask me why I don't have as many subscribers, maybe I just have poor content. Who knows? Most racist driver. That was one of my most recent videos, and I had a few comments. And this one came in my email. You said you didn't care for either the rider or the driver, and I agree with you. Then it asks a few questions. It says, I was actually hoping to hear your ideas. What would you have done? Would you have kicked her out? What should the driver have done? Well, it's really easy to be that Monday morning quarterback, right? And say, well, I would have done this after you know what already happened. But I can tell you this. First of all, it never would have gotten there with me because I never would have engaged that drive. We don't know. We don't know how it escalated. We don't know how it started. All we got was that vile, offensive back and forth and racist talk. But with me, it never would have reached that point because first of all, I don't talk that way to people. But secondly, I would not have taken the bait. There's an old figure of speech, don't pick up the rope. Meaning when someone starts to get into it with you, don't pick it up and start playing tug of war. Because that's what they're looking for. So if a rider would do that to me, I wouldn't pick up the rope. Try playing tug of war when nobody's on the other end of the rope. And so it's really simple. I would have avoided it by not engaging in the first place. And I think that's why, you know, people say sometimes, Mark, why don't you do videos with riders? Well, first of all, I think it's private and I shouldn't be videotaping riders. But secondly, it wouldn't be very interesting because I don't engage in conflict. I just don't do it. And she would have had nothing to be arguing with me about, and I would not have thrown insults and racist remarks back. So that's what I would have done. Do I feel the drivers should have been kicked off? Based on that give and take, I think they both should have been kicked off, yes. And the last comment on that video, wow, hard to watch that interaction. They should both be deactivated. That is a sentiment that I would say the majority of my viewers had, at least the ones that left comments. Neither of those people were right. But the driver was so offensive. I mean, that was just, it made me cringe. But yeah, I don't think either of them were right. I don't think she should have been poking him and prodding him and encouraging him. I don't think that he should have been, you know, there is no room for that in our society. So I agree. I think they both should have been deactivated. So I know this has been a long one. I have a hockey game to get to. You know, it's winter. I'm in Wisconsin. That's what we do. So as always, I encourage you to leave your comments below. Please like and share the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm Mark with Uber Hints.